Hi, since you clicked on this video, I assume you're an aspiring artist looking to make cool artwork. Like this. Ooh. I mean this. I'm by no means a professional artist. I'm still learning every day. Regardless, I've learned a few things and I'd like to share them with you. First tip. Refine your sketch. As you've probably noticed, in the background, my sketch was pretty rough. This meant that when I had to work on the finer details of the piece later on, I was basically doing it from scratch. If your sketch is way too rough, you'll lack the visual clarity needed to place your lines, and your finished product will be all over the place with no real coherency. If you feel like your sketch isn't good enough yet, it's absolutely fine if you need a second draft before moving on to line art. But my favorite mangaka does it this way. Hush. Weeb. Most mangaka do tend to draw over a pretty bare-bones sketch. Don't be fooled though, this isn't some secret sauce they're keeping for themselves. What you need to understand is that they've developed this way of drawing to save time in a very harsh industry. They need to more often than not focus on the bigger picture and make sure the page they're drawing flows well, rather than focus on the smaller details. Maybe when you're a big boy artist you can try doing this, but for now, stick to taking your time. This second tip is where I sort of go against the grain a little. If you've watched other line art tutorials, you'll have probably heard the term line confidence used quite a lot. However, I disagree to an extent. A confident line doesn't necessarily have to be clean and perfect, as long as it's placed well and serves the purpose you need it to, which hopefully is for making good art. Do avoid chicken scratching though, there's an example of it on the screen right now. It's basically where you do short and thin scratchy lines to try and create the illusion of a singular line. It's incredibly ugly and there's no scenario where it will ever look good. Like, there's not even an example I could give you where it has a use, so just don't do it. Now for a little bonus tip. Do not use stabilization. On paper, it seems like a really useful tool. It gives you perfect lines, quote unquote. However, this is at the expense of a lot of headaches and spamming Ctrl-Z, looking for that perfect line. Plus, it just takes a lot of personality out of your artwork. Trust me, turn it off and get used to not using it. My third tip is to stay zoomed out as much as you can, which is something you can actually see me struggling with in the background. Just because we can zoom in really far as digital artists doesn't mean it's always helpful to us. Unless it's for smaller details, try your best not to zoom in. When you draw, you want to see most of, if not the whole picture, so it flows together in a nice way. If you're really struggling to make lines while zoomed out, just use the eraser tool to clean them up. It's different across tablets because different tablets have different resolutions, but if you zoom in and the lines you're drawing have quite a lot of pixels you can visibly see, just zoom out a little and then start drawing again. Moving on. Another tip is to keep your lines pretty thin. This is because if you push too hard with the pen, you lose a lot of variety your pen pressure can offer. This also helps when you want to add line art later. Everything isn't already thick and hard to work on. Remember, lines in shadow can be conveyed with line weight, which adds a lot of depth to your artwork. Keeping on track of line weight, which circle did your eyes focus on first? For 90% of you paying attention, it was most likely the thicker one. Use this principle when you want someone to focus on a certain aspect of your artwork. Use thinner lines when something is further away or less important. For the last tip, brushes don't really matter. Unless you're trying to achieve something very specific, just use the regular G-pen, or for some texture, the real G-pen, like I'm using for this artwork. Once you've learned how to correctly use these two, feel free to experiment and try new ones out. Apply these tips, take your time, and keep on grinding. Bye.